what I do remember is, almost without exception, all my friends said, "You're absolutely crazy. You don't know anything about food. You don't know anything about truffles. You're mad. You're just going to lose. You're just going to lose all your money." And they were very clear on that.
Look where you are now. You know. Today's guest knows a thing or two about persistence, from accountancy to banking, through surviving a life-changing Boxing Day event to starting and running the UK's leading truffle business from scratch and developing it into a luxury food brand sold around the world. He's proof that playing the long game pays off. Welcome to the podcast, Nigel.
Thank you, Ian.
No worries. So can we go back to that event on Boxing Day in 2004 and what can you remember most vividly about it?
Wow. I mean, it makes more of an impact after the event when you realize what has happened. You know, at the time, it didn't seem like such a massive deal at the very time. You know, we're sitting on a beautiful veranda overlooking the ocean on a hill, which we were extremely lucky to be on a hill, with a garden that sloped down to the with all these local guys looking after us, and bit of a commotion as far as the sea was concerned. Didn't really realize what had happened at all. Guys were panicking, obviously, because they knew what was going on. We're sitting there having our Boxing Day brunch, I think it was, drinking tea. It was bizarre. What I do remember about it, which was really strange, was at the time, sitting there, the ocean just disappeared completely. So the sea completely disappeared. And obviously then it started coming back and it dropped out. It was going out and back and out and back. And it was over the course of that day, really, that we realised what was going on. We weren't in communication with anyone back in. None of our friends were able to get hold of us. They obviously knew what was going on. So yeah, it was all a bit of a mystery. It was only really the next day when we realised how serious the situation was, when we were told we had to leave. And then leaving the villa, driving literally half a kilometre up the road. As I say, we were lucky because our villa was on a promontory. And then driving half a kilometre up the road and just devastation everywhere. Dead bodies, devastation, dead animals. It was pretty horrific.
Yeah. And that was a tsunami of 2004.
Yeah.
From that earthquake.
And it killed like 250,000 people. I think it's the biggest so far as casualties are concerned, I think it's the biggest natural disaster in human history.
Yeah. And how did that change your perspective on life after that, do you think?
Yeah, I think it definitely made an impact, you know. I think I was already struggling a bit with the work-life balance, the role I had, the job I had, and already thinking about, you know, that I need to do something different. And yeah, I think that just pushed me even further in that direction. I was already going in that direction, but I think it pushed me even further in that direction.
Yeah, that sort of catalyst that helps. And do you think that's helped sort of pushed you a little bit more into starting your own business? And without that experience, perhaps it might have taken a little bit longer for you to get there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what was really the driver was, you know, I knew I had to, other than needing to start my own business, although it's something I've always wanted to do, it was really the catalyst to drive me out of what I was doing at the time, you know, because I knew I had this big job, which was great. I was getting paid very well, but it was having a real impact on my health and life. And I knew that I had to give it up at some point in time, because I knew that I couldn't keep doing it forever. And I knew that if I kept trying to do it, you know, I'd be ended up having to drop out and then probably be too old or too knackered to do anything else. So I knew I had to give it up. And I think it was just the trigger that really made me decide that this was absolutely the right time to do that.
Yeah. And so originally you trained as an accountant and then worked into banking. And how do you end up starting the truffle business?
Well, obviously I gave my job up in banking. I had a pretty good career in banking while it lasted. You know, I made a reasonable amount of money, not a fortune, but a reasonable amount of money, and wanted to do something different, wanted to see what else was out there. Got a decent amount of money saved up in the bank and decided that I would get married and my wife and I would go off on an adventure, basically. So that's what we did. So It was really hard to give up the job. It literally took me the best part of 12 months to give the job up. It was difficult
Yeah.
because I was hooked on it. It was real adrenaline. It was a global job. It was a big job. I was getting paid a lot of money. Bonuses were fantastic. It was a 24/7 job completely. And yeah, so we decided we'd get married and we'd have an adventure. So we went off, we got married. Actually, we got married on the beach in Malaysia, which was nice.
Lovely.
And then we decided we would try something different. So we bought an old wreck of a farmhouse in Italy and we moved out to Italy.
Wow. And that's where you started sourcing some truffles on there, and that was that your first experience of truffles?
Well, it took a while. I think we were there. We found this house. Originally, I thought I might do something in olive oil, in terms of trading it rather than growing it. I mean, we planted grapes, we planted olive trees, we planted fruit trees. We spent, the time renovating the house. Beautiful location, but it was right in the middle of nowhere. I've never heard of a truffle before. It was right in the middle of nowhere, and it was during this process that we got introduced to truffles by visiting. I think the first time I saw a truffle was literally in one of our house in Italy is in the mountains. It was literally in one of these local villages in the mountains, really remote location. A little fair there. I think there was some guy selling some salami and some this, some that. And there's a guy there selling truffles, and there's these guys selling these little golf ball sized, smaller than that, white truffles, wanting 200-300 euros for them. And I'm thinking, what is going on here?
Yeah.
There's got to be some value in this. So we started buying the truffles and we started experimenting with them. And it was during that process really that gave me an idea to start a truffle business.
Wow. And for listeners that don't know what truffles are, obviously you've described they can be white or things about golf ball size. Why are they so prized? Why do they sort of hold that value that you've said?
Well, these particular truffles that are so expensive, there's lots of different types of varieties of truffles, but the truffles that are the most expensive are the white Italian, not necessarily Italian, but the white truffles, tuber magnatum. And they are extremely rare and difficult to find, basically. And they have a very short growing season. They need perfect climatic conditions. And yeah, they have a very short shelf life. So, and they're very prized as well. They're amazing things. They've got an incredible aroma and flavor, and they're very much in demand.
Was it then experimenting with your wife at home in the Italian mountains that you thought, actually, we can build something here?
Partly. I mean, what actually happened was, the first thing was, it gave me the idea. My first adventure in truffles was, the idea was to buy, there's lots of local truffle hunters in the region. So the idea was I'd go around and I'd buy truffles off these guys, the hunters, and I made a website. I did all the coding myself. It was rubbish, but I did it all myself. And the idea was we would try and sell these truffles to affluent individuals in the UK for Friday night, Saturday night dinner parties with a particular target on London, right? So that was the original idea. So we started doing that, and we did that for about 12 months. We were buying truffles, selling truffles, shipping them to the UK, and it just built from there. We picked up some chefs as well as part of that process because we decided to try and target some restaurants, which we did. That business model commercially was hopeless for a variety of reasons. Probably the main reason was getting DHL to come on time to collect truffles from, a mountainside in Italy and deliver them the next day to London was at the time extremely challenging, and we'd ended up with a lot of disastrous failed deliveries, and there was problems with the truffles, and it was disastrous, but not disastrous, but it was not commercially viable. And but during that process, we learnt a lot about the truffle business after picking up some commercial wholesale customers in the UK. One particular customer was very supportive. There's a guy who's a friend of mine who had a food service distribution business, and somehow one of his best friends is a Michelin star chef who we'd send truffles to, and the Michelin star chef I don't know if I'm allowed to say their name or not, really. I don't see why not.
No.
So it's a guy called James Wellock who ran a business called Wellock's. They're a fine food wholesaler. And his friend was Michael Wignall, who was the Michelin star chef at the time. He was at Penny Hill Park. We sent some truffles to Michael. Michael, I think, spoke to James and said, you need to buy truffles off this guy. So James came out to visit us, and he was our first real wholesale customer. And we worked with James. We'd source truffles. We'd send truffles to him. And it was during that friendship that he actually suggested I should make truffle products for him. So you put that together, and as I said, the fresh truffle business itself was extremely challenging, particularly the way we were doing it as well. You know, it became clear to me that the real opportunity was in manufacturing products, truffle products, byproducts from the truffles themselves. And that's what gave us the idea to start that business. My wife and I worked probably for another 6 months while we were in Italy, developing products, developing our branding, marketing materials. And then we moved back to the UK, rented a little unit, actually it was half a unit, and started making truffle products.
Wow. And then that's like a nice transition from fresh truffles into oils, crisps and condiments and stuff. By the sounds of it, that was more of not necessarily a trial and error, but not quite a strategic plan, but the path. One door didn't quite work for you, so another one slightly opened and you explored that avenue, really.
All I knew really was, I did a little bit of market research, basic. I had someone help me with that. I had a concept in my mind, and the concept was that truffle products did exist at the time, but there was no English label branded truffle businesses or truffle products. And the way that I describe it is you go into a delicatessen in UK or the US, and somewhere at the back of the shelf with dust on it, you'd find an ugly looking bottle with some Italian writing on it, which is probably a truffle oil, which is probably, at the time, £15. No one knows what it is or what to do with it. So it was quite a simple concept, which was, if I can make that for £5 and brand it nicely with clear labeling, tell the user what it is and how to use it, then there's a market opportunity there. And it was really as simple as that. And we figured out that there was a retail opportunity there to do that. Probably what I didn't realize, certainly what I didn't realize was the size of the food service opportunity, because the food service opportunity for wholesale truffle products far outweighs the retail opportunity.
Right. And again, you've gone into a business here, into a sector that you've had no previous experience about at all.
Yes, that's right.
And dare I say, you're starting this at a time where nowadays it's very easy to get on the internet, search things, research things. You would have started this sort of, 10 years, 12 years ago, where...
No, more than that. It would be, no, not at all. I mean, we first started dabbling in truffles, it's 18 years ago.
18 years ago. So, gosh, the landscape would be completely different to perhaps how much easier and readily available data is back then, really, isn't it?
We rented our first unit. It wasn't even a full unit, half a unit, the downstairs. We moved in on the 1st of October, 2010. So that's when we started manufacturing.
And if somebody's listening and wanted to have their first taste of truffles or a truffle condiment, where do you think they should start on the range? Is it a bit like wine? You want to start at, say, the entry level of wine and get a taste, and then you can go through the expenses of the wine? Is it the same with truffles? You might not want to have the white truffle first of all. You might want to start with an oil or some crisps or something.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a range of condiments that are very approachable. Yeah, and they've got great truffle flavor. We've got, mustard, mayonnaise, ketchup, hot sauce, barbecue sauce, and they're a good place to start because they give you a small, I guess, a small hint of what actual truffle tastes like. But at the same time, they're condiments that are not that expensive that you can use on a day-to-day basis. Just go back to just finishing about what I said, you're saying about starting in an industry that you didn't know anything about, which is absolutely spot on. But what I do remember is, almost without exception, all my friends said, you're absolutely crazy. You don't know anything about food. You don't know anything about truffles. You're mad. You're just going to lose all your money. And they were very clear on that.
And look where you are now. where how much more, I suppose, perseverance has paid off, and listening to people and developing it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, financially, I probably would have been better off staying in banking, to be honest. But it wouldn't have been as much fun.
No. And your health probably wouldn't be as good as it is at the moment then, probably.
And I wouldn't be working in banking now. That's absolutely for sure. I would have finished 10 years ago. So I don't know what I'd be doing now. I'd probably be dead.
Yeah. And let's go into sort of the business journey, because having no experience, as you've said, there must be lots of different turning points and struggles along the way. Obviously, then you've got to keep moving forward once you get some momentum. What were some of the toughest challenges in the early days of building Truffle Hunter?
I think my lack of knowledge generally of food business was definitely a handicap. Um, didn't stop us moving forward. And, I think the reason for that is I'm absolutely perseverant, and you have to be when you run a small business. But that was a challenging, and we made mistake after mistake after mistake. I mean, you could say we're still making mistakes, but there's so many traps to fall into. I mean, as an example, I just think there's so many examples. I'll give you one example, yeah? Small example, maybe. I decided early on in the days, I wanted a fancy retail bottle. So I decided to buy this glass from China. God knows why I decided to buy it from China. So I think it was half a container load or something of glass turned up from China, and it arrived, it was all broken. It was terrible condition. It was packed terribly. We'd paid for it. Crazy. What on earth was I thinking of when I ordered that? I've no idea. Yeah, so we had a lot of certainly a lot of mistakes. That was a big one on the grand scale, actually. That's one that does stick out, but a lot of smaller ones as well.
As a founder, you have to wear many hats and probably do a lot of learning on the go as you go along. Have you found that quite an interesting journey to change hats quite rapidly?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's been one of the enjoyable sides of it, really. The fact that, you get involved in all aspects of the business. That's not my background, but I've enjoyed that aspect of it. In fact, that's still going on because when I started the business, I didn't do any of the sales. Actually, my sister came on board and ran the sales for a while and did a great job of getting us up and running. I've never considered myself to be any good at sales. I've always thought that, my expertise is in finance and logistics and operations. But now I'm actually running the international sales myself now. So that's a new challenge as well, which I'm enjoying, actually. Doing an okay job of it, I think. Touch wood.
Touch wood. Brilliant. And I'd imagine, like most businesses, there was a pivotal moment around COVID. So obviously you had some good momentum in the early days of that. And how hard or how tough did things get during those COVID times? How did you manage to steer the business through those difficult waters?
Yeah, so I mean, we had just to take a step back. So we started this business 1st of October 2010 in seriousness, in terms of actually making products, and we had a phenomenal run. We grew consistently, revenue, profits, every single year for what was it, 10 years basically. Um, and then COVID hit us. The immediate impact of COVID was that online sales exploded. Obviously, all our restaurant sales dried up to zero. And we actually had a very good financial result for the first year, revenue again and profit wise. But somehow it just threw the whole business out of sync. It really wasn't a good thing for us. And then around the same time, I can't remember the exact dates, but around the same time we had Brexit. We had, not long after that, the war in Ukraine starting, which had an impact on raw material prices. There was a drought in Spain that pushed the olive oil price, more than doubled the olive oil price, which had a huge impact on us. Obviously, interest rates went up as a result of the inflation caused by COVID as well. So that impacts not only the interest that we pay, but also consumer spending. So all these things just happened within a very short space of time. Yeah, it absolutely hammered our financial results. It really had a massive impact on our business. Sorry, and I should add to that as well. I think some businesses were a lot smarter than us. I think a lot of businesses made the same mistake as us in COVID, which is that, we thought the COVID e-commerce boom was going to last forever. So, we went out and we spent money on more senior staff. We spent money on more premises, more equipment, more stock. And we over expanded as a result of that boom as well. So that was also came back to bite us. So you put all those things together, and then once COVID had died down, we actually had a very difficult 2 years. We had two really struggling years financially where we lost money, and we had to basically restructure the business to get it back on track.
Which is quite a difficult process to go through, and actually, but it's nice to be able to recognize it, see what it is, and be able to change it relatively
Well, I think,
quickly, isn't it?
yeah. Yeah, I think that what's really noticeable, what's really worth mentioning is, it was a fundamental shift. We needed a fundamental shift in mindset, because we'd had this business. It had grown like crazy for 10 years. We were making money. Staff were getting fantastic bonuses, big bonuses. We were generating a lot of cash, and we weren't thinking about costs at all. We just basically whatever we wanted, we just go out and buy it. And then to suddenly go from that to a business that's losing money almost overnight is quite it's a shock to the system, let me say that, and hard to kind of get your head around what has happened. It all happened so quickly. It was certainly shocking how quickly a business could go from being a very successful, profitable business to being loss making.
Which was very similar to your 2004 tsunami experience. You're on the balcony having your Boxing Day brunch, everything's going fine, but chaos and the sea goes out, and then it comes back in, and it brings an almighty wallop with it, isn't it, really? So you've had some sort of resemblances back into that. On the other side of the spectrum, what's been some of the most exciting breakthrough moments for you in your journey?
Oh, I think, picking up great customers is always good. We've had some big successes over the years, get big names on board. That's always exciting. Doing trade shows, I love doing trade shows with chefs, because I love chefs. They are so knowledgeable about food. Whenever we do a trade show and chefs come along, they're so complimentary of our products. And that really makes me feel great because, as I say, they know their stuff. They try our oils. Our oils and other products are as good as anything in the world. I'm no doubt about that. And it's recognized. And when you're on a trade stand and a chef comes along, and quite often it might be a famous chef, or at least someone who's well known, they try your products and they say, wow, that's the best truffle oil I've ever tasted. Then, that really does make you feel good.
Yeah, and especially if you've not come back from a product development background.
That's right.
There's another sort of layer of achievement within it as well.
Yeah.
You've said
That's true.
persistence is key. And what does that actually look like when the days are hard? So over the last couple of years, what's that sort of persistentness look like for you?
I think it's just a determination not to let things, just not to give up. I mean, the business was going horribly wrong. We could have quite easily have lost the business, but I was just absolutely determined that that was not going to happen. I just did whatever I can to make sure that didn't happen.
Which is then, I suppose, quite self-reflective. And how did you deal with sort of some of the, I suppose, pressures that come with making those difficult decisions?
Yeah. I mean, I had good HR support to help me with some of those decisions. We've got a great team here who've been with us a long time. A lot of them have been with us a long time since we started the business, or rather joined fairly shortly after we started the business. And they've been great support. Yeah. And obviously we couldn't have turned the business around without their help, determination and perseverance. So I'm very lucky to have, there's, quite a number of key individuals here that I'm really lucky to have on board. So that's a big part of it. Just refusal to give up, basically. And also determination and confidence to know that we have got a great product. We have got an established great business, and that it's too good to just let it fail.
But if we zoom out a little bit and we look back at your journey into finance, into food, what were some of the standout lessons that you've learnt along the way?
Well, every business is different. So, I don't want to preach. I don't want to preach to other businesses what they should and shouldn't do. But for me, I think there's some key things that have been important in our success. One of those things is, I always say to new businesses, and I do see it a lot. I see businesses developing new products, starting businesses up, yeah, and I worry sometimes that they try and get the perfect product before they launch it. And I've seen businesses develop products for years, yeah, and then until never quite happy with it, right? And I'm a big believer in you need to get on with it. You need to launch it, get it out there, get the feedback. You can always tweak the product. You can always amend the product. You can always improve the product. I just think it's really important to just put your stuff out there and not be scared by what the impact would be. Obviously, it's got to be safe, particularly if it's a food product. But that's really the only criteria, right? If it tastes bad, someone will tell you, and you can just tweak the recipe. What's the disaster? So that's one thing. And the other thing that again, purely for my business, the other thing that I think is really important is you have to own all the marketing. What do I mean by that? You have to own the branding. You have to come up with it yourself because it's part of you. I would never, no disrespect meant, but I would never go to an external consultancy and ask them to design a brand for me. Because I just think that you're going to get something, personal opinion again, but you're going to get something that is watered down. It's, made to suit everyone. It's ticks all the right boxes, but it's not exciting and it's not dramatic and it's not personal, and it doesn't reflect you. So I do think you really need to own that and you really need to come up with that yourself. You need to come up with the business idea. You need to come up with what the business looks like, the business name, the branding, the logo. And I just think that's a really, really important to put some real credibility behind the story of the business.
So I suppose that's the difference from, say, just a business or a brand or a purpose-led business.
I feel the same as well about, I do see a lot of our competitors, they just buy product from Eastern Europe and stick a label on it. Just like that's no interest to me whatsoever. I feel like I feel like it's disingenuous. I feel like you've got to really be part of the product. You've got to be part of the recipes. You've got to know how to make the product to really get that kind of quality premium feel.
That will come across, obviously, when you go on the trade stands. The chefs come up to you and they can tell that there's the authenticity, the passion, the enthusiasm that goes into it, the love that goes into it, rather than I can get it for X, I can stick my label on for Y and sell it for Z. And you run a business like that then has no flavor, no integrity, I suppose, is the word we're looking for.
Yeah.
And you often say, I believe it's from a book, Samuel Beckett's play, isn't it? Waiting for Godot? Is it
Wait for Godot?
Godot or something? Is that right?
Godot. Wait for Godot.
Yeah. What is that sort of something? One of your mottos that you stick by at all?
Yeah, it's just a manager of mine once used to say it all the time. Whenever someone would say, "I'm waiting for something," he would always say, he had two phrases, both of which I loved. He'd say, "Don't wait for Godot," and the other phrase I loved was, "You can't get 10 pounds of shit in a 9-pound bag."
Which then comes back to get it out into the marketplace, get some feedback and tweak on the feedback. So you're almost falling forward rather than spending, say, 2 years developing what the perfect product might be. But by the time you've launched it 2 years, the consumer's taste buds has developed and what you thought was good is now no longer suits the industry that you're trying to go into.
And also someone else has probably done it and beaten you to it.
Yeah. So first mover advantage. And what piece of information or feedback you would give yourself that you now have some deep wisdom from growing a business that you would give back to your younger self?
I think I probably should have been more involved in the sales side of it myself from the word go. I tended to step away from that and leave that to other people. And we've had some great salespeople, don't get me wrong, But I just feel like, yeah, I'm getting better. Making better relationships now with the customers myself by getting more involved. And I probably wish I'd done that a little bit earlier. Yeah, that's probably the main one I would say.
And so when we came back a moment ago, you were like, you need to learn about the brand, create your design, do your own marketing in-house. What happens if somebody's listening going, I don't know how to do that, but I want to start my own business? Is there an element of you've just got to go out and find it and you've got to learn those things and upskill yourself continually?
Just think you just have to have a go. Yeah. And I guess, if you really are hopeless at it, well, it won't come of anything, but at least you won't have spent thousands of pounds on a wasted idea. You just have to have a go and learn as you go along. It's about perseverance and just try out different things. And I guess it's putting yourself on the line, really. You are putting yourself out there potentially for ridicule. I guess it's, you gotta put up with that, right?
Right. Roll with the punches, as they say.
Yeah. And, if someone, okay, you make a mess of something, what's the worst that can happen? As long as you haven't mortgaged your house on it and spent loads of money on it, if something goes wrong, what's the problem really?
Yeah.
What's the risk?
Pick yourself up.
You have to weigh up risk versus return, right? I mean, when we started the business, I did have quite a lot of money in the bank. But we only put a small amount of money into the business to start it. We started everything, at least initially anyway, we started everything on a shoestring. I had friends help me, friends advised me. I had people advise me on the products. Again, just friendly, really. We spent a really small amount of money on the premises. We spent the bare minimum on equipment. We did a lot still in our kitchen at home. Some of the products we started were making were there. So just be too silly in terms of, actually starting the business and spending money. Test it out first, make sure it's going to work before you start mortgaging your house.
Yeah, some proof of concept, as they would say.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. And if you weren't doing this today, what do you think you would be doing or could see yourself doing?
Well, I can't see myself working for anyone else. I don't think I'd respect anyone who would give me a job.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't imagine really what I'd be doing. It would be something crazy, something completely out of the box.
Which is like what you've done starting this, completely out of the left field from banking straight into this. And you've learned along the way. And I think there's some important lessons that as you started the business, you start it lean, you ask questions, you're inquisitive. And if you've got the passion, like you say, if you do your own marketing, your own brand, your own story around the products, people can buy into you and that, which then they don't mind helping. They don't mind offering a little bit of their expertise that you can say, do you mind just having a look over this? Does this sort of make sense? Or I'm trying to do this. Do you know anybody that could help me with this? And they go, actually, my friend's a chef or something. And before you know it, you've got a chef sampling your products going, that needs to be a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit more of this, a little bit of that, which is priceless to have, isn't it?
I mean, what I would say is I do like business. I do enjoy the whole business landscape. I enjoy the numbers. I am still a finance person as well. And probably if I wasn't doing this, or if at some point I'll stop doing this, I would really like to try and help other small businesses in some way, consultancy or advisory level, even if I don't get paid for it, to be honest, because I just enjoy doing that.
And how have you found expansion? Have there been any sort of wobbles? Obviously, you go to international trade shows, you're around the world in lots of different parts of the world. How have you navigated that again? Because that's something that you haven't had experience of before.
Well, it's been very organic. We've done trade shows, we've added customers gradually, steadily. And again, putting the COVID blip behind us, which obviously was a train wreck in that journey. But really, apart from that, it's just been very, very steady, consistent, hard work, going to trade shows, spending time with customers, which is great, by the way, because, again, generally speaking, people that work in the food business are great fun. They like going out, they like eating, they like drinking. So, we've had some fantastic times with some of our customers in countries all over the world. But it's been a gradual process. We've never really done anything taken any major risks or put any major investments. Probably the closest was just before COVID. We were about to start investing quite heavily in China. Maybe COVID saved us from that, but that kiboshed that investment opportunity. But other than that, yeah, it's just been an organic, gradual, enjoyable road, really.
A consistency that pays off. And finally, what's next for you and the Truffle Hunter?
Well, it's a good question. So we are investing in sales at the moment. Subsequent to COVID, we have had a big change in our sales team and sales structure, and we've been trying to rebuild that. So I've got 2 new salespeople starting next month, which is great. We are putting a lot more focus on the website at the moment, on the website sales as well. So we're investing in that. We see growth in that area. We're in the process of producing and publishing our own recipe book, which will be a very nice coffee table book, which will be a great asset to us, I think. Also, after having 2 really horrible years, we're about to announce a modest profit. Our year end is September, so we're going to have a modest profit this year. We've got a great pipeline in sales and looking to build on that really and start to actually, start to generate some decent numbers again. We're not making as much as we should be. Going forward, I think we'll be back on the right road. And, as a result of that, we'll be able to spend more money on the premises and we'll be able to spend more money on the staff and we'll get the bonus scheme going again, hopefully. So yeah, those are the plans for the next 12 to 18 months anyway.
Wow. That's quite a full-on plan for the next 12, 18 months. But like you say, you focus on one area, it all cascade down into the other facets of the business, which Nigel, thank you for sharing your story. From the life-changing moments to building a business that brings flavour to tables around the world. There's so much at risk, but it's all about resilience and the rewards of persistence that will pay off. And if some people are interested in trying some of your truffle products, where's the best place that they can purchase them from?
Yeah, definitely go to our website, trufflehunter.com.
Fantastic. I'll leave it at the show notes. But thank you very much for coming on and sharing your story.
Thanks a lot.
Be a part of 360 Life Stories. Subscribe and join our emailing list to get exclusive insights, episode highlights, and behind-the-scenes stories straight to your inbox.